The newest member of the Hall of Honor, Dave Broyles.
Again, welcome to our second edition of the Mustang Lounge. This is kind of a tradition that we changed up here in the Hall of Honor a few years back, and went really well, and it's a great way just to get to know our inductees and chat about some memories. And first of all, Dave, congratulations. Newest inductee into this Hall of Honor, and we have lots of stories to discuss. But first of all, you're from Wyoming. How'd you get to Southwest back in the early 1970s?
Well, when I was driving up here with my wife Georgia and I came up through Sioux Falls, drove up from Sioux Falls, and on the way, she looked at me and said, "Now, what year did you come here?" I told her, "It was the fall of 1971." And she looked at me and said, "Well, I was in second grade then." And then she said, "You know, that was like 2 generations ago." So it kind of puts in perspective how long ago it was, so I'll try to do my best to remember back. When I was a senior in high school, I really wasn't sure if I was even going to attend college at that time, but I'd gotten some letters from local colleges from Colorado and Nebraska. But I got a phone call from Coach Don Palm from Southwest. He set up an appointment to come. He did a recruiting trip through Wyoming. And I remember waiting at the front door of our house, and I watched him. He pulled up in a big maroon station wagon that had Southwest Minnesota State College logo on the side, and I was pretty impressed with that. I mean, that was pretty
Big deal back then.
It was.
Yeah, big station wagon.
And he came in, he was big on binders. He had all these binders of he had a lot of pictures of the athletic facility, and then he had some pictures of the athletics, but most of all, I think the thing, we sat down with my parents and I at the table, and I remember him saying, "Dave, if you come to Southwest, our team's going to be in the top 4 in the nation within 4 years by the time you're a senior." And I remember how impressed I was. I wasn't sure how realistic that was, but it sounded, I knew he was enthusiastic, and that kind of sold me on the program.
And you mentioned Don, he meant so much to the program. Obviously, pretty darn close to those words were true. Top 10 finishes several times. But what did he mean to you in your swimming career here at Southwest, and the impact that he had during your 4 years?
Well, first of all, he was my academic advisor, and I'm sorry to say that I wouldn't have gotten on the list of the high grade point averages listed by the president there. I've looked at my transcript. My son gives me a hard time about it because I have a lot of aquatic classes on my transcript. Wingboard diving and scuba diving, and he had this class called aquaphysiodynamics that he came up with. Right, so he did some things to kind of keep my grade point average up. One year I had my coat stolen on a trip, and he went out to a store and bought me a coat. One of the big things he did, every year I flew home from Sioux Falls to Denver, when I flew home for Christmas back to Wyoming, and he drove me from Marshall to Sioux Falls so I could catch my flight right before Christmas. And I know that was a hardship on him. He had a young family, and he left his family to take me down there. Sometimes he went down there to pick me up after I returned from Christmas. So that was a big deal. And the other thing is, in 1972, I turned 19, and I got a letter from the Selective Service that I was going to be, my lottery number to go to Vietnam was 42, which is pretty low. So I knew I was going to be drafted, and I went to a physical, my draft physical up in Minneapolis, and I had a copy. I found this old copy of a letter that Don Palm wrote to the clerk of the draft board back then, and explaining all the reasons why I should get a deferment and not be drafted, and I should stay, at least complete the one season, the next season. But it turned out that the peace talks for Vietnam kind of went through right then, and they abolished the draft, so I didn't have to worry about the draft.
Now, Don obviously brought in some great athletes, but the atmosphere, we've talked about this over the years, at the pool was second to none in college swimming. And can you just discuss what that was like to compete with your teammates and kind of that home pool advantage that you guys had throughout? Because we've seen the pictures, it was a packed place and really a spectacle to watch.
Well, I was talking to Mike Fallon about this, and he kind of brought up that, and it's true, that at that time the school was so new that the football program and basketball program really hadn't had a chance to get established. So it really gave a chance for a minor sport like swimming to be, it really was a major sport back then. Like you say, the pool, we had our own cheerleaders for the program. The pool was packed, and pretty much every dual meet was standing room only. There's one meet that comes to mind that kind of set I think was the highlight of my whole swimming career. And it was when Don Palm used to be the swim coach in Bemidji before he came down here. And he wanted to set a kind of a rivalry meet with them because he used to coach there. And so my freshman year, he set up the last meet of the year with Bemidji, and he brought in bleachers, and it was just absolutely spectacular. It was the Super Bowl of dual swim meets. And I found this book, and I thought I'd just read what Don Palm wrote about this meet in this book that I got at the end of the year. It was kind of neat how he wrote everything down. Never in the short history of athletics at Southwest has a team, a student body, or a community reacted so enthusiastically in an athletic event. Very little studying occurred during the week by the swimmers, as they were busy making signs, soliciting support, and practicing. 2 sets of portable bleachers from the high school were rented and to increase the seating capacity of the pool to over 1,000 spectators. A sheet, in quotes, donated from the dormitories was painted into a symbolic swimming machine by Pat Humphrey and Steve Davis. As the 2:00 p.m. meet approached, the bleachers filled to an overflowing capacity crowd of Mustang supporters. As the Southwest team entered the pool, and we did our usual 2001 Space Odyssey theme when we came in, the emotionalism of the crowd and the team was electrifying. Win or lose, the Mustang swim team had succeeded in creating a rivalry which would become a tradition in future years. And then he went through every detail of the meet about how Tom Moen swam and how Mike Fallon swam in my event. And then at the end, he said, final score of the meet, Bemidji 57, Southwest 56. Certainly a fitting conclusion to the greatest dual swim season in Southwest history.
He was amazing. You know, one thing, I've got to know some of these swimmers over the years, and if any of you know them, they were a fun bunch, to say the least. And you had some great teammates. The camaraderie you guys had was second to none. And obviously some of the stories we have to do after hours, but just talk about how much fun you guys had as teammates and to compete for Southwest.
Well, I roomed with Greg Higdon for 1 year, and I just thought it was great rooming with him, but I don't think I was that great of a roommate for him. I was kind of a hypochondriac back then, and one thing about Greg is if you said something that was a little offbeat, he never let you forget it. And I remember before one meet, I was sitting in the locker room, and I told him, I'm not sure if I'm going to swim very well. My thumb hurts. I wonder if I have cancer of the thumb. And he never let me forget that. For months, he said, Broyles, you can't swim. You've got cancer of the thumb. And then I was talking to Gene Luke the other day about, we were trying to remember things back of Hogger back in those days. And he had this poem when he was a freshman that just over and over again he said this poem. And I'll just read it. It's a little off color, but when the summer is hot and sultry, that is not the time to commit adultery. But when the frost is on the pumpkin, that's the time for Peter Duncan.
I might be too young, I don't even know. I got party with you guys. It sounded like great the bond you guys had, and you know, the compete and the competitiveness, and why you guys were so successful as well. That was obviously seen throughout. One last thing I want to touch with you, Dave. You mentioned the influence your father had, Marshall, in your life and becoming a swimmer and making this a career in swimming. You touched on that.
Well, when I think back on it, my mom and my dad had a big part. My mom was 93 now, and when I got the news release about this event today, my sister and I, we gave her a copy of the news release, and her memory is fading a little bit, and she put this news release on her lap, and my sister said she's gone over it every day. She reads it, and then she forgets she read it, she goes over again, and it has just meant the world to her that we were able to come back and be part of this event. So that's part of my family right now. My dad, I remember when I was in junior high, my dad was the principal of the school I went to. And when I was in 7th grade, I went out for football. I lasted 3 days and I hurt my knee. And then I went out for wrestling, and I only made it to one match. And the one match I went to, I was pinned in 31 seconds. So the next year, I had some pretty good success in AAU swimming in the summer. So my dad, I think what happened was he asked the PE teacher to start a intramural swim team. That's when I was in 8th grade. So the PE teacher I don't think he really wanted to do it. He never seemed that excited about it. But we met up, a lot of kids went up to the high school and we swam, and then at the end of that little season we had a little inter-squad meet, or intramural meet. They gave ribbons out, and then, but the neatest thing about what my dad did is he read, I won several events at that meet, and he read the results in the next week at the school during the school announcements, and that was like the greatest thing back then, to have your name on the announcements.
That's awesome. Well, Dave, great to hear some of these stories. Congratulations, and welcome to the SMSU Athletics Hall of Honor. Congratulations. One last thing, go ahead.
I would just like to thank so many folks that came today that were a big part of the Southwest program. Teresa Johnson and Jane Luke were cheerleaders of the program back then, and that was just means so much that they came. It's really awesome. Craig Porter, Greg Hickman, Jim Norton, John Pearson, Mike Fallon, my wife Georgia, Donna, and I don't remember your maiden name, I'm sorry. Schilling. Okay. Oh, anyway, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Congratulations.